Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in with us today. We are in for a treat today. I am so excited about this edition of the Even Better podcast. We are here with Paula Bell. Paula, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sinikka. Great to be here. Great to see and hear you. I should probably say more. Virtually, it'd be great to see you, but great to hear you.
You bet. It's been a run these last few months, hasn't it?
It has.
My goodness. So for those of you who don't know Paula, let me introduce her. So Paula Bell is a friend of mine, a colleague, an inspiration, a driver, perhaps the person that I know who can accomplish more things in a given week than any other human. But she does all of these amazing things, and I can look back with so much joy in the years that I have known Paula. It's been a lot of years. We've had a lot of lunches together. We've had a lot of conversations together, and what a joy to be part of the same network. So things that I know about Paula, I know that when I first met her, she was a practicing BA, and she has continued to just really do wonderful things in that space. She's a coach, she's a consultant, she's a trainer, she's a speaker. She is the BA martial artist and has brought that brand to greatness. She's got a consulting model, and she helps people find their passion and build their brand out of that. I imagine in very much the same ways that Paula herself has found her passion and built her brand and uses those as experience. And she's also been really diligent along the way of not just doing what she loves, but making sure that she's the expert in doing what she loves, right? So she's got these amazing certifications. She is a certified business analyst. She is a certified life purpose coach, a certified diversity and inclusion manager coach, and a licensed intercultural development inventory qualified administrator. So when Paula decides that she's going to do something, she does it all the way, and she makes sure she knows every detail. Is that fair?
Definitely fair. Definitely fair.
Awesome. Well, Paula, as we have so many topics that you and I could talk about, and I imagine this will not be our only podcast episode together. I imagine we'll see each other or hear each other again. But as we were preparing for today, I asked you to share what would be your sort of key thoughts around this. And you centered today's conversation around 5 steps to getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I think right now in the moment that we're in our society, that is really, really powerful. Being uncomfortable and then getting comfortable with the fact that we are uncomfortable. What brought you to this topic, Paula?
You pretty much summed that up nicely. It's exactly that. It's having those really tough conversations that we were able to avoid before that we can't avoid now. So when the unfortunate incident with George Floyd happened, and there was so many different types of emotions around that, what I found is a lot of people really didn't know how to talk to me, being a Black African-American female. There was a uncomfortable tension because of the enormity of that incident and how people were digesting that incident. Everybody had their own feelings towards that. So there was a level of uncomfortable where people really didn't know what to say, and I could sense it. And that is definitely not the time you need to shut down. That is the time you really need to talk. You need to learn. You need to get to know what's going on, how people are feeling, learning about other people's journey. And so I took that as an opportunity to help open up those doors of communication and getting people out of that zone of being uncomfortable. Because again, and what we're seeing in 2020, there used to be topics we could avoid. We didn't have to talk about them. If we didn't feel comfortable, we didn't have to talk about them. 2020 came in like a lion, and it's still going hard. And you just can't avoid those topics anymore. So I want to help people find a way to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I've been able to do that with all of the diversity work and all of the courageous conversations and hard conversations I've had to have over the years. So I just want to help other people have those conversations because we're better together. And so we just have to figure out how do we communicate and relate to each other and appreciate each other's difference and ensure that people are feeling inclusive. So I want to help in that space. I want to be the change that I want to see.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. That's so, I just have to pause for a second because even those remarks, even those words that you just shared are so characteristic of what I know and love about you. And this is such a treasure to be able to spend this time. I know when the the incident happened, that you were top on my mind. And I know that somewhere there was a message that said, I'm thinking of you and I'm praying for you. And all I could do at that point was pray. And I was totally at a loss. What are the words? So to your point that you felt that they didn't know what to say, right here, we didn't know what to say. We didn't know how to be uncomfortable in that moment. And so I am just anxious to hear your words here, Paula. So you have identified 5 steps, 5 very specific steps to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So the first step, as I understand it, is about self-reflection. But you say more. What is this first step what's the first thing you got to do if you're going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Well, you have to know where you are and where you are from a comfort level, what makes you uncomfortable. So you have to take time and do some internal searching. And many people don't take the time to do that. We're so busy with our day-to-day lives, especially if we have kids or taking care of parents or our family, our job. So we're so busy just in the day-to-day that we don't take time out to really just take a moment for self-care. And in order to really be effective in really getting to that level of being uncomfortable, you have to understand where you are today. You have to have that baseline. So you have to take a moment. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to look within. You have to determine where you are currently today. You have to determine what makes you uncomfortable. And the biggest thing, and this is where a lot of people don't want to go, is you have to be truthful with your biases, your conscious and unconscious biases, because we all have them. Everybody has some sort of bias. You either know about it and you want to deny that you know about it, or you know about it and you're just fine with it, or you have those unconscious ones that you don't even recognize. And taking a moment to step back and really evaluate yourself and figure out where you might have those biases is really huge. For an example, as a Black female, I have experienced racism. I have experienced stereotypes. I have been told in my career, early in my career, when I wanted to go for a manager position, that a particular company that I was working for, they weren't ready for a manager, let alone a Black one. I was told that to my face, right? There were biases there. There was thinking there. There were stereotypes there. So you can either let that break you, or you can let that help to motivate you and encourage you. But a lot of people have that, right? So you have to be truthful with yourself. Are there things that you have biases toward because you're just uncomfortable, you don't want to deal with it? And just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So you have to be really true with yourself and take time and look deep within yourself based on patterns, based on feedback you've received from other people, based on feedback you know about within yourself that you know about. You have to take that moment and you have to reflect on who you truly are, because these steps won't work if you don't do that first step. This will not work, because at this point, you're just a facade. It's time to be truthful, and nobody has to know. The beauty of this is nobody really has to know. This is a personal thing. So all you're really doing is talking to yourself. If you're scared to talk to yourself and scared to be truthful with yourself, how do you expect other people to interact with you, right? So it's okay to do the self-reflection and to ask for other people's feedback that you're close to or that you work with. Am I really perceiving myself the way I'm really being perceived by others? Is this truly who I am, or do I have a false reality of myself that I need somebody to be honest with me about and tell me? Because most people think they're a lot better than who they really are. We always want to think the best of ourselves, right? And that's fine. You should think the best of yourself, but you have to get to that level of realism too. So the first step has got to be, you have to figure out where you're starting from and who you are. And then we're going to build upon that in the next step.
Yeah. So as you're thinking about this, your point about most of us think we're better. I remember reading a statistic somewhere that said 80% of us here in North America believe ourselves to be above average, which is tricky, right? 80% of us can't be above average. The math doesn't work that way. But as I think about the self-reflection and even asking other people, I'm going to ask you a how question, like how do you do that? Or do you offer a tip there? Because one of the things that I know is that we are super tempted as humans to go ask someone a question that we already know the answer to, and the answer is favorable. So I'm going to say, oh, Paula, I know I talk fast, but it's not so bad that I talk so fast, right? It's okay, right? And I'm going to ask this leading question with someone who also talks pretty quick. And I'm going to, find someone like me who's going to affirm what I would say, because that's our human nature. So how do we as people, what's a tip for someone to bust out of that and to go ask for critical or perhaps disagreeing or perhaps feedback that's going to challenge us or not be flattering?
So that's a very good point. You do not want to go to people who are just going to agree with you all the time, because that just makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, yes, I am perfect, so I'm going to stay that way. This is a huge nugget, too, for when you're trying to create your network. You're at those core people around you who are supposed to be there to help you grow and to motivate you. This is where diversity is at its greatest, because you do not want people who are like you. Now, you might have some that are, but you do not want people that are like you. You might even have somebody in your circle who you really don't like that much. But the reason they add so much value is because they're going to be honest with you. They're going to tell you that, you know what, no, this isn't right. Or no, you're not right. Actually, you're really not that perfect all the time. Really, you're talking fast. Sometimes that takes away from your message because people can't keep up with what you're saying, or because you're saying it so quickly, it's coming out so fast. So you need to be very intentional on who you have around you and who you ask for feedback from. And if you find that when you look at your circle and you sit down and you take an inventory, an account of the people that are around you, and everybody's like you need to change your circle. You need to have those people who are going to credibly challenge you, who are going to go against the grain and push you. That's where you start to grow. You definitely do not want the people who are just always going to make you feel good. It's not going to work.
You don't grow that way.
You don't.
Okay, so we're here with Paula Bell, and we're talking about 5 steps for getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And the first step that Paula has just articulated is really self-reflection. Just understand who you are. And then we're going to go to that second step. The second step here the note that I have is research. Paula, what is that all about?
Mm-hmm. So let's take our current climate in the United States right now, right? So we have a global pandemic going on. We have civil unrest going on. We have financial crises going on. We have a whole lot going on right now, right? And so, and so as you start to do this self-reflection and you start to realize there's maybe some biases that you do have that you're not too proud of, maybe some areas that you want to get a little bit more expertise on or knowledge on, that's where the research and the education comes into place. So for example, let me just give you an example. One of the things that has come out a lot with the civil unrest that's happening here in the United States is there's a lot of focus on Black Lives Matter, right? So there's a lot of focus on that. So it's a term, a phrase that a lot of people hear. And so a lot of people, they just hear the phrase and they just go right in and they counter it with all lives matter. Now, I agree. All lives do matter, no doubt. But there are things that are happening in the Black community that are not right. And there is groups of individuals who want to fight those injustices. And so before people just jump in and say all lives matter, step back a minute. Have you even gotten educated and done any research on what the Black Lives Matter movement is? Or are you just going off of what you're hearing and seeing on social media and in the media? Because there's a lot of false information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Everything on the internet isn't true, right? So it's taking a step. Yeah, it's not true, Sinikka. I mean, everything out there is not actually accurate. Right?
You should have told me.
So it's actually taking a step back and educating yourself through either looking at reliable sources, which is kind of hard to find too in some situations, trying to find those reliable sources, but also talking to people who are part of the movement and understanding from them, what is it that you've been experiencing that I just don't understand or that I just was not aware of? And it's taking that moment and just getting that research and education. You might have a bias also, an affinity bias where you only want to interact with people who look like you, or you might have a bias where if somebody does you wrong, you hold that grudge forever and there's nothing that person could ever do again that will make it right. Okay, why do you have those behaviors? What is an affinity bias? What is this Clover-Hoven foot bias, right? What are these things? So you start to do research and you start to gain understanding. And what that research and education does is it gives you another perspective. It gives you knowledge. You start to understand other cultures. You start to understand why other cultures behave certain ways. You start to understand what are the systems in our country and how do those systems work? And do the systems work the same for different populations of people? And if not, what is that difference? And it starts to bring that knowledge. Because again, just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not real. Just because it's not your truth doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that's what I'm really trying to get people to understand. Educate yourself. Instead of just immediately going with a counter perspective on something that somebody says, what do you even know about it that you're fighting against? Are you just fighting against it because of what you've seen or what you've heard other people? Or have you actually stepped back and done your own research and educated yourself and really tried to understand the perspective another group of people are coming from, another culture is coming from? So that's huge. It's one thing to do the self-introspection, but then what do you take with that, what you find out about yourself, and how do you take that information, get more educated, get more knowledge to actually get to where you want to get on your journey of interacting with other people and embracing their difference and ensuring that you're making people feel that they are included, they're embraced, and that you're going to treat them fairly.
Yeah. So I love your point about the research and just making sure that you're using reliable sources, right? Not just any source, not believing whatever is on your post. If you've seen the social dilemma recently, you're aware of the things that are going on with algorithmically that are putting content in front of us, not because it's true, not because it's good, but because we click on it. Well, good heavens, I should not be like just only looking at data because it follows the pattern of things that I might click on. That's not going to get me that perspective that you're describing so much. So I love the idea of looking for reasonable and reliable sources. My husband's a debate coach, and so I use one of his platforms, and their name's not coming to me right now, but there's a media bias tool that you can look at that lays out all of the top known media platforms and lays them out based on, is it fact-based reporting? Does it lean one direction or the other? How accurate is it? How much op-ed is in there versus facts? So you can look at this tool and go, okay, I'm believing something that's way down here in the opinion-based, not fact leaning one way or the other. Or I can say, nope, this is top and center. This is facts only. It's data reporting. It's source reporting, and it is not leaning one way or the other. So that's a tool for looking at. But I love your other perspective about talking to people, right? Engaging in a conversation, asking someone. Mm-hmm. In the weeks following the George Floyd murder, did people talk to you? Did people reach out to you and say, Paula, what are you seeing that I don't see? What do you experience that I don't experience? Help me understand.
So yes, in a way, and this is going to actually bleed right into step 3. So I'm going to mesh step 3 in here as well as I answer this question. So let me just tell you a little bit of what I went through with George Floyd. So George Floyd was not the first incident in the Black community where there was an unfortunate death by the hands of our authorities. Now, I want to be very clear on this podcast. I am not against police officers. So I have friends and family who are police officers. All law enforcement is not bad. I'm not against that at all, and I'm not even here to debate that. However, there's been so many incidents where there has been lives lost at the hands of others that are in authority that I wish didn't happen that way. And so what does that create? Creates fear. The reason why you have a lot of, well, I should say one of the reasons, I can't speak on behalf of all of Black or African Americans, but I can tell you that I had some hard conversations with my own kids after George Floyd, because over the last couple of years, we keep hearing these sort of stories. And it's really hard when you have to sit down with your child. And I had to sit down with mine at the age of 8 and tell them, this is what you need to do if you get pulled over. I do believe because of these incidences, there are a lot of Black African American people, as soon as we even see a light behind us, there's a level of fear that rises up in us. And when you have that emotion of fear going, anything's possible, because you're scared that no matter what you do, my life could end right now. Even if I comply, and I have the wrong person stopping me for whatever reason, my life can end. So imagine that going through your mind, right? You just don't know, is this it? Am I going to be that next statistic? So I was going through my own emotions when George Floyd happened, and I literally had to take some time off and just shut down for a minute because I was having some hard conversations at home. And then once I got past that piece of it, my biggest phrase coming out to people, because I did have some people who did reach out to me, but then I had some who didn't know how to reach out to me, so they didn't know what to say. But this is what I said to them: listen to understand, not to respond. I am not getting in debates with you. I am not arguing with you. I am not going to justify to you my truth and my reality. I'm going to tell you what my truth and my reality has been. Now, if you choose not to listen, or if you want to argue, I don't have time for that right now. Because at the end of the day, that's not going to change the situation. But if you truly want to listen to understand, and you truly want to help and be an advocate for me, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Let's do it. If you want to be an ally and support, because at the end of the day, everybody needs to come together, because we do have some issues with some of our processes and laws and systems in the United States. It's not just towards Black people either. There's systems that in processes that just don't serve all of the people of our country. And so can we acknowledge that? And we don't have to argue about it. Just can we acknowledge that? And then what can we do to fix it so that we do get to this freedom and this liberation? So for me, I did have people who came to talk to me, Sinikka, but my first question to them is, are you really talking to me because you want to truly understand? Or are you just coming to talk to me to justify your own unconscious biases and how you really feel and to argue with me? Because if you are, I don't have time for that. But if you really do want to have a conversation with me and you want to talk and you want to understand what I've experienced and what others that I am close to, whether it's family or friends, have experienced, let's have the conversation. I'm all about it. But other than that, I really don't want to spend my energy arguing with you because it's not going to solve anything. So I would always tell people I'm open to have the conversation. And a lot of people do feel comfortable having the conversation with me. Mm-hmm. I'm a very open, personable person. So you can pretty much almost say anything to me and it probably will not offend me, as long as you don't keep saying the same thing over and over again. But let's just talk, right? Because I don't think that everybody knows everything. I don't expect somebody who is not a person of color to understand everything a person of color goes through. But as long as you want to truly listen, I'm good with having the conversation, because the conversation is what's going to help us all grow.
Thank you, Paula. As you were getting into that third point there, it's that active listening. That's not listening to defend. It's not listening to argue. It's not listening to respond. It's listening to understand, listening to comprehend, listening to find empathy. It's listening with ears, two of them. God gave us 2 ears and just one mouth. Use them in that ratio, right? Open your ears, close your mouth. And it's right. Yeah. Oh, that's so hard for us. What are some of the things that you do to listen? What are self techniques that you've taught yourself to be a good listener? Because you know it when you see it, so clearly you do it. What does good listening look like?
So number one, you don't talk, right? You don't talk. You intently listen. You look the person in their eyes and you listen, but then you also paraphrase what they've said to make sure that you've truly understood what they said. And you affirm that understanding by saying, I understand, or I hear, or have you considered this perspective, or using sort of words like that. But it's really intentionally just keeping your mouth shut, which is really hard for people to do, right? Just keeping your mouth shut and just listening, and then pretty much paraphrasing and speaking back what you believe that you heard. And then it's just engaging in that conversation. So, okay, so that's your perspective. But let me tell you what my perspective has been. And then I have to be quiet and listen, even if I don't agree. I have to do this. We have to reciprocate it. So it's not a one-way street. It goes back and forth. And it's that level of respect that will keep the conversation going, to where you can have deeper and harder conversations and get to that level of comfort now, because now you're going into those uncomfortable conversations that you would have avoided before. But because you're doing more listening, there's not the pressure of you having to talk or defend. There's no defending here. It's just having a conversation. So why are you uncomfortable having a conversation with somebody? Why do you have to be, it's not an uncomfortable thing. You're just having a conversation. So if you can get away with trying to listen to defend why you are the person you are and listen to understand the perspective of the other person and gain that knowledge, it makes it so much easier to have a convo.
Absolutely. That active listening. I love the way you put that. I'm gonna hone back in on that when you're listening to understand, it takes the pressure off. Because now, as if I'm listening, then the pressure is not on me to respond or to have answers. The pressure is simply there to listen, and listening. Yeah, I love that. That takes the pressure off. That helps you.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to be uncomfortable in that moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, so we're on 5 steps. 5 steps to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And as we've talked about so far, these are certainly in our society right now, in our world right now, there are some uncomfortable times, and we need to be having some uncomfortable conversations. And many of us shy away from those because we don't know how. And so Paula Bell is here, and she's sharing with us 5 steps to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. First one was self-reflection. Second one was research. We'll right into the third one, which was active listening. What else you got, Paula? What do we do next? So I've listened. I listened to understand. I closed my mouth at the appropriate moments. I engaged in a reciprocal, respectful conversation where we're trying to understand each other. And then what?
Then you have to take action, because action changes things. So you've got this information now. You just don't sit on it. What are you going to do with it? You've now gotten all this knowledge, and your perspective of life has been opened some. So now take actions to help. Number one, get you comfortable being uncomfortable by continuing to have these conversations, by determining how you're going to hold yourself accountable to not just have this one conversation, but to keep the conversations going. So there's some accountability here too. Don't just stop, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And so you're building this momentum. So let's continue to have the conversations, continue to do self-reflection, because as environments change, as cultures change, your comfort level is going to change, because now you're in a different environment. So this isn't just something you do once, it's iterative. So you have to continue to do actions that will allow you to keep the conversations going, to keep having those conversations, to keep actively listening, to bring up that comfort level, because the discomfort is really not about the other person. The discomfort is about you. The discomfort, so a lot of people, when they get uncomfortable, they'll say, well, the other person is making me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But the other person doesn't control you. You control you. So what is it within you that you can't control that you're giving them your power to make you uncomfortable? It's not about the other person, it's about you. What is it about you that's giving you the discomfort? And as you continue to put yourself in situations where you would have avoided before, and now you don't avoid that anymore, and you put yourself in those situations, you're going to begin to uncover stuff about you. And that's where the change is going to come. Because now you're going to begin to realize, you know what, it's really not about them, it's about me. And why am I putting so much pressure on myself to be uncomfortable? So don't make the discomfort about the other person, it's about you. That's the main key I found with taking action. And that's why when you continue to hold yourself accountable, to do the self-reflection, to continue to have the conversations, that discomfort's going to lessen, because you're going to realize that you're truly in control of you. You're not in control of the other person, but you are in control of you. So why are you allowing somebody else to pull that energy from you to make you uncomfortable?
Wow. So that one, I suspect, is going to have our listeners, we're going to play that one back a few times and just keep thinking about that one. Uncomfortable. My discomfort is not about the other person, it's about me. So what are we doing about that? And that's where that action comes in. What can I do to lessen the situations in which I'm creating discomfort? What can I do to get rid of or to change my own personal biases now that I'm better informed and I've had better conversation? Wow. Okay, so we got to take the action. Mm-hmm. Just knowing, and that's what you started with on the action there, is just knowing. Now that you know things, you can't keep doing what you've always done. So if we know that something is harmful, if we know that a system is broken, if we know that something is not right, or some behavior that we've done is offending someone else, once we know it, we got to stop, right? That's part of the action. Don't keep doing what you've been doing, right? Make that change.
And please vote. And please vote. Please vote. Don't just vote for the president, vote for Congress, vote for all of them, vote for our legislators, just vote. Because at the end of the day, these are the individuals that we have given the power to create these systems and policies and processes, and we do have a say in it. So I just had to throw that plug in there. So please vote.
Just please vote. To exercise our civic duty, our responsibility, our privilege, and let's vote. So that's a good action that we can start with. Okay, so let's get to number 5 here. We're talking with Paula Bell, 5 steps to getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Self-reflection was the first one, then research. Active listening was the third, and then action. And now we're on to the last one. Paula, what is the 5th step there? What do we do to get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Share your journey. The same way I'm doing it right now. Because when other people hear other people's stories and they see the change and they see the behaviors and they see people modeling the behaviors that they would love to see, not only within themselves, but within others, that is a powerful thing. People remember stories. People remember when somebody has done something that's just incredible or overcome obstacles or challenges. And this is all a journey. And we all have been on different parts of this journey. We've experienced different things on this journey. So share your journey, share your truth, share your reality, be vulnerable, share. Because once you share, other people are going to share. And then how beautiful will that be if we can encourage each other and help each other along this journey of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. You don't have to do this alone. It's not something you have to do alone. And you should never be ashamed of where you are as long as you're trying to be better than you were from your past. So definitely share your journey and let others, and if you have the ability, give others the platform to share theirs.
Oh, that's beautiful. This is not a new discovery for you. You've been doing this for years. And I know this because when you and I first met years and years ago, I'll probably not tell it right, and you can set the record straight on but here's what I remember of the story that you told. And you told a story about entering in a space in corporate America and sitting around a circle or a room somehow. I always pictured it as a circle, and a circle of leaders, and that you noticed that you were the only Black woman in the room. And everybody was introducing themselves and saying where they were from or what was going on. And there was something about the situation that people were not being as genuine as you wanted them to be. And so you introduced yourself, and this, the way I remember the story, you said, "Hi, I'm Paula, and I'm Black." And when you told me that story, and I don't even know if I got that right, so you have to set the record straight, but when you told me that story, what I heard and how that helped me on my personal journey was the realization of, for so many years, there are things you don't talk about. You don't bring that up. You may have noticed that she's Black, but you don't say that. You don't talk about it. It's uncomfortable because what if someone doesn't like that about her? And how do you do this? And you made it okay to yes, Paula, it turns out you're Black, and your experience is different than mine, and I cherish that about you. Okay, so correct my story here.
No, you're pretty much spot on, and that opened up a door to people to ask me all sorts of questions they've always wanted to ask that they felt uncomfortable asking, and I opened up that door for that to happen. But yeah, that's pretty much, you have the gist of it. That's pretty much what happened. I could tell there was a discomfort there because of past experiences they had with someone who was Black. And so I believe that there was already biases and stereotypes put on me because of that past experience. I wanted to really just nip that in the bud early and just kill it. I'm not that person. We might share the same race, but I'm not that person. So at least give me a chance, give me a clean slate to prove the type of work and the type of coworker that I can be. So yes, I thought that was the best way to do it. And that was uncomfortable for me too, because I'd never done that in a corporate setting. So in the Midwest, on top of that, I had just moved to Iowa from being in New York, right? So in New York, we're blunt, direct, and we get to the point. In the Midwest, not so much, right? And so Midwest, so I took a huge risk doing that, but it worked out in my favor.
It did, and you continued to tell that story, and I imagine you told it to others as well. But I remember that as a life-changing moment for me. It was certainly a conversation-changing moment for me. It was one of those moments where I knew for sure that you and I were going to be good friends for a really, really long time, because I had so much to learn from you. And it was one of those moments where I realized that there are conversations that we're not having, that we need to have. I have always admired you for your ability to speak your truth and just lay it out there. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that tell your story or share your journey or speak your truth is that last step with getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And as you just alluded to, I remembered or reminisced over that story, is you said it wasn't necessarily easy, right? It wasn't comfortable for you, but you were okay with the discomfort, because that's what we got to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to definitely put yourself in that vulnerable spot. You have to do it at the right time too. But you definitely, if you want, I've heard the term or the phrase, right? If you want to conquer your fear, you have to hit your fear head on. It's the same thing here. If you want to conquer getting uncomfortable, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And sometimes just put yourself out there and take that risk. Now, is it always going to work out perfectly? No, but that's okay because you've learned from that. But at least you attempted it and you tried. And so you'll continue to get more and more bold and courageous in doing that. And that's what you need to do. But the biggest thing is we just need to talk to each other and just be respectful. This is really not this hard. It's really not. we just don't do it. So if we could just be respectful and listen and just have a nice, fruitful conversations, we could be so much further.
Oh, for sure. Paula, you're such an inspiration. Thank you. So we've been talking about 5 steps to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable with Paula Bell, my dear friend and colleague. 5 steps. So she talked about self-reflection and research and active listening and action and sharing your journey. So wonderful, wonderful tips, Paula. As we start to wrap up our podcast here, one of the things that I always ask is what's making you even better right now? So you do these things, you inspire other people and you accomplish so much. What's making you even better?
Being vulnerable, being authentic, and continuing to learn myself. So I have to practice what I preach. And so that's the biggest thing, is stepping back and learning about others and some of my own biases that I've had in the past and interacting with others. So just having that vulnerability, authenticity, but I'm also being extremely bold and courageous right now too. I'm not taking a lot of the fluff that I used to take before. Either we are going to make a change or we're not. Right? It's not about the words anymore. It's not just the words diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are just words without transformation. I want to see change. I want to see behaviors change. I want to see cultures change. I want to see actions change. And so for me, that's really what's making me better right now, is the motivation to be that change that I want to see. So I'm holding myself accountable to help in that, and hopefully that will inspire and motivate others to do the same.
Oh, I have no doubt. Paula, what a joy. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Before we wrap up, one of the things that I know about you is that you are a coach and that you coach people through these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can share about how someone would, like, what would it look like if someone said, this idea of diversity and inclusion, and I want to get better, I want to do better. And I know that Paula, she's certified in some stuff, but what would it look like? What would a coaching experience with you look like?
Yeah, the first thing that I'd probably recommend that we do is the IDI assessment is huge, because the IDI assessment is an assessment on your intercultural competence. So just getting that baseline of how do you interact within your own culture and with others gives a lot of insight on why you might do some of the things you do and the unconscious biases you have. And then from there, we go deeper and we get into a development plan of action. These are the actions I'm going to take to get better and to move to where I want to be, not from this monocultural mindset, but an intercultural mindset, and having the tools and resources to interact with others. So that's what that would look like. It's a journey that you would go through with me on figuring that out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paula. Well, thank you so much for all of the folks who are tuned in today listening to the Even Better podcast. I hope that this has been an enlightening time for you. I know it sure has been for me. And it is always such a joy to spend time with my dear friend, Paula. Thanks to everyone for joining right now. And thank you so much, Paula. And we really, really appreciate you.
Thank you, Sinikka. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.